The stem stitch is a basic embroidery stitch that's great to use for outlines and lettering. If you want to get into decorative hand stitching, this is one of the stitches you'll want to learn. I'll start with 2 strands of floss on my embroidery needle and tie a knot at the end. You can use more strands for a thicker stitch. Make sure your fabric is pulled taut in an embroidery hoop and draw on your fabric either with a fabric marker or pencil to give yourself a stitch guide instead of trying to freehand it. My first example is going to be something simple, which is a straight line. Now when it comes to a stem stitch, the most important part is to pick a side. And it doesn't matter what side I'm picking, whether it's above the line, below the line, to the right of the line, to the left of the line. As long as you're consistent with your stitching and you stick with that side, you're going to come out with a very neat looking stem stitch. So to start with, I'm not starting completely on the end, but I'm starting about 1/8 of an inch away from the end, and you want to keep your stitches fairly small so they look neater. If you do really big stitches, they tend to look kind of sloppy. And I'm going to pick my side as being below the line. So when I pull my thread through, I'm trying to keep it below my line. So I'm just going to hold a finger here. Now I'm going to put my needle in at the end of my line. Before I pull this all the way through, I'm going to come up in between those 2 points. So you can see it's right there in the middle. Now I'm keeping my thread below the line as I pull it all the way through, and that's my first stitch. Now I'm going to do my second stitch, again bringing my thread below the line, going about 1/8 of an inch up from my first stitch. Before I pull it all the way through, I'm going to come up right where my last stitch ended. Now I can pull this all the way. There's my second stitch. Third stitch, 1/8 of an inch away, keeping my thread below the line, coming up right at the end of my second stitch. Now I pull it all the way through. And you can see it's a fairly straight stitch as long as you stick with your mark. And it's a great stitch in order to create lettering or to do that outline because it's fairly easy to control. So I just go a little bit in front of that, keep my thread below the line, bring this up right at the end of that prior stitch, and then pull it all the way through. Now to end my stitch, so I'll show you what you do when you get to the end. So this is my last final stitch right there, and now I want to tie a knot on the back. So all I do is I just come a little bit in front of that last stitch and just pull it through, and that's it. Now you could tie a knot on the back. So now we're going to take a shape that's a little bit more complex on a circle in case you have curved shapes that you're trying to do. The concept is still the same. You want to keep your thread on the same side. In this particular case, I recommend trying to keep your thread outside of the circle rather than going inside of the circle. And you're going to try to do that as you go around the whole thing. And this would be the same thing if you were doing something like the letter C. So you'd want to keep it on the outside of the letter C. So I'm just going to pick a spot to start. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch away from that. And you'll see my thread is outside the circle. For my very first stitch, I always go up in the center and then I pull it. So now I'm going 1/8 of an inch away from that, keeping my thread outside the circle, going to the end of my first stitch, pulling it through. And I'm just keeping with the same consistency, keeping my thread outside the circle, pulling it through. Now, if you're wondering, why do I recommend pulling it outside the circle? It's because I think it really helps in keeping a really neat looking stitch. So I'll show you what happens if I go inside the circle. You're not supposed to switch it up, but I'm going to go this way now. And I feel that when I pull it through, it just seems to look a little sloppier. So I'm going to just do a few stitches just so you see what it looks like. So let's do one more. It's not so bad. I just think it looks a lot nicer if you keep the thread outside. So this one, when I'm pulling it, it kind of pulls it outward, so you keep that shape. If I have it this way, it kind of pulls it inward. It just doesn't feel as neat to me. So that's why I like to do it the way that I do it. To finish a circle, my last stitch, or I guess second to last stitch, I'm going to get pretty close to my first stitch, just like I'm doing a regular stitch here. In the very last stitch, to finish it off, I'm actually going to overlap with my first stitch. So I'm just pushing it in a little bit so I can get on my line and then pull it through. The last example I'm going to demonstrate is the S shape. Now this is the only one where I'll switch directions with my thread, and you don't have to do it. You can stay on the same side if you want, but I do it because you have two curved edges and they're going in two different directions, and I find if I stay on one side, one will look really neat and then the other one will look less neat. So that's why I switch, and I'll show you how I do that. So for starting off this way, I'm doing it just like I would a circle, where I want to keep my thread going outside the circle as I'm sewing it. So I'm just going to continue doing that. And about the halfway point, I'm going to switch over when I feel like I'm getting closer to this curve. So let me do a couple more stitches here just to get to that. So keeping my thread consistent so far. And then as soon as I finish this one, now I'm going to go over to this other side. And I find it's a little weird, but it just keeps my curves looking really neat. So the first stitch looks a little odd. Just going to tighten that. But I tend to find that overall it does make my S look neater. And again, if you want to stay pure with your stitching and keep it on the same side, you can definitely do that as well. But this is just what I personally do when I'm doing these types of shapes. And usually with my lettering, they're not quite this big, so you can't even notice it. I flipped it over to the back to show you how to finish your stitch. Now, if you're doing something like a handkerchief or a towel and you're going to see the back of the finished product, typically you don't want to have large knots. So what people usually do is you're going to go 2 stitches in, bring your thread through, and then you're just going to keep doing this a few times. So basically, you're not tying a knot. You're just running your needle through your thread to lock it off. I normally, for my projects, always have my back covered. So all I'm going to do is just do a small knot. So you just do a little loop, bring your needle through there, and then you're going to pull it. And I pull it slowly because otherwise you might end up with a larger knot than you intend. And then just cut it off. And that's it. When I embroider, I probably use this stitch the most because it's easy and it always looks good. Try it for yourself. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of our new releases. Also check out ProfessorPincushion.com to view our complete library with well over 450 sewing tutorials. If you would like to directly support us, you can join our YouTube membership and earn some exclusive perks. Thanks for watching.